So with my teachings and all the players that I work with, I do try and approach it in a certain way where we're going to feel like there might be a little bit of a spike of pressure in the backswing, right? Start from the ground.
Yep.
And then from there, after they've done that, that brings in some momentum to the rotation of their body, almost frees them up. And then I'm getting the back of my right shoulder for me. And I feel like this really helps everyone rotate in a fashion where they stay connected. The back of the right shoulder faces the target.
Yep.
And that is my feeling because part of that is contextual based, because when I was younger, we just did a great video on keeping the hands lower as you take the golf club away. So make sure you check that out. But we do see a lot of players pull the hands away. They have them very high. That back arm moves behind them. So for me, combination of that pressure down and back of the right shoulder behind, it tends to work really well. But I know there's a certain concept out there that you teach as well that is a great visual for players. So what I want you to do is jump in here, sit up to this golf ball, and we'll face this camera over here. I want you to kind of describe the sensation that players should look like to start their backswing.
Yeah, so as you move into the backswing, like you touched on there, we're trying to keep those hands, say, low, pressure kind of working down and away from you. Now, as you start to rotate up, you touched on the feeling of your back of your right shoulder working your way towards the target. Now, for me, when I'm sort of looking at you side on there, I'm really looking at your balance point. So that would be, say, the top and the bottom of your spine there.
Yep.
And ideally, we're trying to maintain them on top of each other as we work up to the top.
Yeah.
And that would then kind of suggest that you're able to control the centerness of your pivot. And quite a nice way to think about that would be in the fashion of like a spiral staircase.
Great.
So, if you were to think of a turn itself, a lot of people think in the golf swing, I just want to turn. And, people might watch the video and think, right, I'll get my right shoulder and just turn it round to the target. But unfortunately, when you do that, you've actually lost a lot of turn there.
Yeah.
You've turned on a sort of single axis, right?
Correct.
Whereas we have to have an element of a tilt as well. So then people think, well, I'll sort of tilt down. And then all of a sudden now you keep the left shoulder down and there's no turn. So it's trying to marry those two together. And if you think of that spiral staircase, the bottom stair or step, say, is your feet.
Yeah.
The top step would be, say, a level above, but right on top would be your head.
Yeah.
But everything else in between is kind of moving around and up. So you're starting to get that idea that you touched on earlier, that left shoulder would work down towards your right foot as the right shoulder can pull around to the target. So now I've completed a good sort of rotation, getting my upper thoracic round to sort of 90 degrees. And that would suggest then I've sort of turned and tilted appropriately in the backswing.
Yeah, and I love that. And if you think about the visual of if you were setting up and you imagine there was a big spiral staircase around you, it's almost starting with a shift of pressure. And then from there, that has this movement that then translates all the way up through your body. And a spiral staircase by nature, if you look at it on a building, is going to be pretty much straight up and down, right?
Yeah.
So that is going to be your body. And I love that visual of keeping everything nice and centered over the ball, which is going to really help us with our contact, get that ball first, ground second, compression, crispy iron shot feel, but ensuring that we're staying centered over the ball, really strong pivot, keeping everything organized and in sequence. And just like you detailed before, time and time again, we see so many players as they set up to the ball, that very first movement would be from the top of the staircase. And it's just pulling the whole thing over, and before you know it, it's not serving any purpose, is it? So setting up there, right, I really like the feeling, and I suppose we're talking about a very similar concept here from what I described to what you're described, but you've just given it a great visual. And I talk about shifting the pressure into the trail foot, which kind of starts the swing, gives a lot of momentum all the way up to the top. And from just adding in your visual of the spiral staircase. And if I actually think about that over the golf ball, and I think about those steps as we take the golf club away, making its way up to the top, it really does almost have this feeling that I'm creating a bit of torque in my body, right? And I feel wound up and like I can create a lot of power through impact. So let me do that again. Now, I do feel really coiled at the top to then just let that go. But if I do the opposite and I set up here and I make that big aggressive initial move, shoulders, head, maybe right ear moves behind me, nice baby draw, but that was about it. So I got lucky with the contact.
Yeah.
Any final points here to tie a bow on this for the audience at home?
Yeah, I think, like you said, when you're talking about that pressure shifting, it's important to note that your mass isn't moving. So the pressure in the ground is shifting onto that trail side, your right foot.
Yeah.
But there's no sort of mass moving further right than where it started.
Yeah.
So if we were to get you on the camera and we might draw a line down, say, the right side of your trail leg here. Okay. So I would say that nothing would really want to go any further right than where you started, right?
Yeah.
So as you move to the top and you hold the top of your backswing, that pressure would be, say, loaded on the inside of the right heel here, but no mass is actually shifted further over. Now, when you talk about that torque and that creation of like the tightness, I often will get people to go up to the top, and if you turned, I can chat away to you, no problem at all. No problem. All the way around, I've overturned here, I've made a huge turn, and I can still talk to you, no problem. Likewise, if I tilt a lot, if I tilt without any turn, again, I can talk to you, no problem at all. But if I marry those two together and I spiral up to the top well, I rotate well into the backswing, and I create that torque, all of a sudden my backswing now, as it builds, is starting to create tension. And it creates tension. And you can hear I'm almost squeezing the air out my body. So when you get to that point of maximum tension, that's your backswing complete. You don't then need to add anything in with the arms or wrists or anything. You work to that point of maximum tension, then you can hit.
Yeah.
Now, it's quite a nice feel for, where does your backswing actually end?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think for the recreational golfer at home, having those visuals, those thoughts, those ideas around something very simple that we all intuitively know, the look of a spiral staircase, if that was wrapped around the body, and encouraging that centered pivot, making sure that we're not starting it by shifting and moving considerably off, which we're going to lose that feeling of torque, and just the great feel that players can work on. It's almost like squeezing the air out of their body as they're pivoting to keep themselves in this position. That doesn't mean that you're putting unnecessary stress on your body at all, is it?
No, not at all. No.
It's just like in the moment when you're swinging, golf is an athletic, dynamic movement, and you need this sort of movement in such a way we're going to produce the potential to create power. And then I think this right here is a great drill to do that. So if you are looking at your golf swing, you feel like it's not quite connected, it's not in sequence, there's things going all over the shop and you're struggling with your contact, use the visual of a spiral staircase and it could really help you with your ball striking.
Thanks for watching this video. YouTube thinks that you would benefit from watching this one next. So click that card and it could be the tip that you need to take your game to the next level. I'll see you next time.